Hello, my name is Muchoki, and welcome to Querying the Ballot II, a podcast hosted by Galck Plus, Nigelhawk, and Einen. And here I am joined by amazing human beings who are doing beautiful advocacy work in society today. And I'd just like them to take a minute or two to introduce themselves and, say something interesting about themselves. So we're going to start with you, Adrian.
Greetings and salutations. Adrian Kibe, pronounce him. I'm a transgender man, Kenyan. Something interesting about me. I played basketball when I was in high school. Height notwithstanding, so yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Masafu Okwara. I am a legal expert in sexual orientation, gender identity and expressions and sex characteristics. I work at the National Gay and Lesbian Human Rights Commission. I must also mention that I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya who did not vote for Charles Kanjama.
Hi everyone, my name is Marylize Biubwa, but you can call me B. I am a human rights activist, Black, queer, radical, angry, intersectional feminist, the co-founding executive director of the Queer Republic. My pronouns are they, them, and I'm a queer, non-binary lesbian. Fun fact about me. There's so many fun facts about me, but the one I will use today is I'm left-handed, and if I was an advocate of the High Court, I wouldn't have voted for Kanjama.
Masafu, we're in 2026. We're entering such a pivotal moment in the political landscape of our country. And there's this whole talk of make sure that you register and get your voter's ID card. Now, why should queer Kenyans really care about participating in a political system that has heavily criminalized against them? And how do we ensure that, queer Kenyans are enthusiastic in participating for the upcoming elections?
Ultimately, queer Kenyans, trans Kenyans, intersex Kenyans bear the worst brunt of this regime, of this system. So we as LGBTQ plus Kenyans, we are Kenyans. This is our country. This country is our business, and we must vote. We must participate in this system. It's within our control now. We are adults now. Remember how adults used to say, when you're an adult, you'll understand why certain things happen. Yeah. Now we are adults and certain things are happening. And we must simply participate. We must make our voices heard. We must create our own voting bloc, and we must participate in restructuring and reconstructing this system that has been a pain in our necks, our lives for a very long time, because ultimately we will be the ones who will bear the worst brunt of this system. Now we have a chance to reconfigure this system, and we will participate in it. We will not sit on the sidelines. We will not wait for other people to vote for us. We will be there. We will be counted. Our votes will be counted, and we will vote and we'll register. We will vie for those political positions. We will ultimately push for legislation that safeguards our lives, because again, we are Kenyans, and Kenyans is our business.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Marylize, I can see you nodding as well. I wanted to ask a question. How do you also bring it to the ground? Like, how do you create that support so that, queer people can be informed, or rather stay informed on the leaders who are vying for this?
First of all, I think it's very irresponsible for any human being, virtually like across the world, to assume that they don't have political responsibility. So I think one of the ways is just reminding people that you have political responsibility. And a lot of times, I think this is a conversation I've had so many times where I'm like, Kenya currently has around 22 to 23 million registered voters. But every time we go to the ballot, we always have around 12 to 13 million people voting. We have a whole 10 million people who never vote. And whenever we speak about the struggles we are having with any regime at any given point, the first problem is there. Yes, we can have a problem with a system. We can have a problem with the leaders. We can have a problem with how things are being done. But sometimes the best way to exercise your autonomy is actually to vote. Because when you actually have people who can listen to you, then you can actually raise the issues that you want addressed. Good example is the president we have currently. That man doesn't care. Let's not even speak about queer people. That man doesn't care about the most struggling Kenyan currently. In fact, every day he wakes up, he figures out new ways he can take more money from Kenyans. We are one of the most illegally taxed countries. We pay very ridiculous amount of taxes, not just in, pay and, being taxed on the salary you make, but also in how we pay value-added tax and everything. And so when you really sit with it, you have responsibility. It's easy to look at it and say, why is Ruto doing that to us? But also, when you really hold the mirror up high, it's not Ruto you'll see in the reflection, it's yourself. What have you done to change the situation? If Ruto rigged the elections, he must have rigged because most people voted for him first, and the margin of rigging was very little. But if you give someone no option to actually rig an election by making sure all 23 million of us show up, and then the 10 million vote that we never really cast, new people actually voting a certain way, a different way. We've seen the things that have happened in 2024, 2025 during the reject finance. Like, there's evidence as to why we don't need this person as a president, but also there's evidence as to why we never show up to vote. And so I think the biggest thing is normally to remind people you have political responsibility. It's easy to say, I don't like politics. That sounds fancy to say it. It sounds cliche almost to say it, but it doesn't make you look good as a person because you are abandoning your responsibility as a citizen. That's why when you get to the age of 18, you're given an ID card. That is literally your state saying, now you can make decisions for this state. We are trusting you with this document. You can make choices. You can make decisions. You have to be responsible. You have to follow laws and everything. But if you're not voting, then what do you mean you're following laws when you voted bad lawmakers and are making bad laws for you? So there is a huge responsibility. And then when it tickles down to queer people, there is a term I like using, discrimination fatigue. A lot of queer people, because of discrimination, they feel like it's a helpless situation. If the Marsha P. Johnsons of our community said it's a helpless situation, we will all not be here today. Sometimes you have to do something regardless of how difficult it is. And so to remind people that it's okay for the two truths to exist at the same time. You can have the discrimination fatigue where you're like, I'm frustrated because I feel like even if I vote, nothing will change. But there's a bigger opportunity in voting and actually voting in people who will actually listen to you, either queer people or allies, than if you sat at home and said, I can't do anything about it, because what that would guarantee is actually having leaders like Kanjama in office, and they will not care for you a day in their leadership. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. I think the one thing that is very synonymous that I'm getting from this discussion is that it affects us all, right? Yeah. And there's the whole talk of ID cards and discrimination. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to pivot back to you, Adrian, right? Because we've seen Kenya that has had this progress in, the Audrey Mbogwa case, right? But how does that law on the book affect the reality of a trans person who's coming to or at Huduma Center to pick an ID card that is crucial for them to actually participate in the ballot?
Yeah, so for the benefit of the audience, I might start from before you even have that ID. Because there are people who might not understand what the issues are exactly. So allow me to start with birth, yeah? So at birth, you're given a birth certificate. Mm-hmm. This birth certificate has two very important things. It has your name, it has your sex marker, okay? this document is what you use to register for school. It is what you use to register later for your ID. The documents that you get after you are born will, after you've had the birth certificate, will be parallel, or they'll be the same or aligned to that is in the birth certificate. And so your school certificates, whatever name is there is the name that is in the birth certificate, okay? Once you're done with school, you've gotten to 18, as Marylize was saying, you get this very big document called an ID. The ID, you don't just get it out of nowhere. They read the names that are on your birth certificate and the sex marker, okay? So trans people do get IDs. Many people think we don't. We get IDs. But the thing is that those IDs do not reflect who a person is, okay? So because at birth, they saw a baby, they said this is a girl. But your gender identity much later, on understanding yourself, you realize perhaps could be on the opposite side. So you find that a person has an ID, that document has a name and has a gender marker that is not reflective of who this person is. This ID is what you use to get a passport. It's what you use to get registered into a citizen. It is what you use to get a driver's license. It is what you use to get a passport. It unlocks every other aspect of your life as an adult, including what we're talking about today, a voter's card.
Yes.
Right? So now we have a situation where transgender persons, the person, who they are, how they present themselves or how they express themselves, whether be it the way they wear, the name that their friends know, right, is different from the document that they have. Okay? So what should happen in such a situation? You'd say, to cure this issue, change the document, right? Now therein lies the problem. There are no provisions for transgender persons to change their names, particularly transgender persons. But everybody can change their name. I think my senior is here, so she can tell us. But the thing is, you can change your name. Everybody can change their name. You can change the name through what we call a deed poll process. So the deed poll process allows a person to change the name. You know, we're talking about elections, eh? So if on the streets people know me as what? As Simba, then I might want Simba to be reflected on my identification, so that when it's on the ballot, people might not know who Adrian is, but they might know Simba. So they'll click on Simba. So you're allowed to change your name through the deed poll process. However, for transgender persons, you see, it's a bit different, because you're not only changing a single name or adding one, you are changing perhaps two names, right? To be reflective of your gender expression, your gender identity, right? So now we have a situation where there's provision for people to change their names, including trans persons. So we use that, we change our names. But my gender marker remains the same. So I didn't carry my ID today, but I would have shown. My ID shows Adrian Kibe, but the gender marker reads female, because I was assigned female at birth, right? And so it becomes a very difficult situation for transgender persons. So what did we do, or what are we doing? We've gone to court. Several times we have been to court, and those are the cases that you're mentioning. We have several cases. Audrey Mbogwa versus the Kenya National Examination Council, where Audrey Mbogwa, a transgender woman, went to court saying, listen, I've studied, I've done all these things. I have perfect grades, perfect scores. I want to get a job. I cannot get a job because the names on these documents are making it extremely difficult for me to get work. And so we argued that in court, and the court agreed with us, and in fact ordered for NEC to reflect the name change on Audrey's national certificates. The court further asked, what is the purpose of a gender marker on an academic certificate? Mm-hmm. So they said, remove it entirely.
Yeah.
A very progressive, a landmark ruling, right? We have Audrey versus Trans Education Advocacy, which was Audrey Mbogwa's organization, versus the NGO Registration Board, where just like Nigolhak, we were saying, allow for trans persons to form their own organizations, associate as envisioned in the Constitution. The court agreed with us. Yes, we were able to register T. Again, another landmark ruling. Very recently, we had the SC case, where a case of a transgender woman who was incarcerated. And while in custody, she experienced extreme violations of her human rights. Her dignity was completely stripped. And we went to court and we said, one, the court must recognize that they're transgender persons that are Kenyans. Two, the court must also provide or give direction. What do we do when it comes to issues of transgender persons and they need to be accommodated in terms of their incarceration, right? You also asked for damages because, again, the person was violated. And again, another landmark ruling. Court not only affirmed that, yes, indeed, we have transgender Kenyans, it also spoke to what we call self-determination, whereby it's basically, if I am a transgender person and I say to you I'm a transgender person, you have no right to ask me for other documents proving that I am a transgender person. It is enough for me to say I am trans, right? So those rulings, landmark, as we are calling them. Now the question is, qua ground, what's happening qua ground? And the reality is that it is extremely difficult. Number one, there are no clear guidelines. No one is saying, bring this and this and this, and in X number of days or months, you will have your documents. So we are having a situation where, number one, transgender persons, their IDs are taking years. Mine took 3 years. There's a guy I know, 5 years. Mwingine, because they knew somebody who knew somebody who knew somebody, again, it is Kenya, 3 months. So there are no clear guidelines. Number two, but still on the guidelines, we don't know what documents are needed. So you find one person is told, bring a letter from your psychiatrist. Another one is told, bring a letter from your parent. Another one is told, the way you look, you're very young, so you know. You know? So there are no guidelines. Number two, the issue of this message has not yet reached on the ground. And so transgender persons are having a very difficult time explaining themselves and their existence.
I think the thing that really gets me with this whole situation is there have been those gains, those wins, right? But at the same time, we are not utilizing them to their fullest potentials because of certain laws that are barring us, right? And I want to come to you, Masafu. It was a few weeks ago when we heard that the court has finally set a full day hearing for the repeal case. And this felt like a breath of fresh air because it was since 2019, right? And what I wanted to understand is, for a litigation advocate who has lived such experiences of, discrimination, or also postponements of delayed cases, what does this specific procedural Kiingereza ni ngumu kidogo procedural steps signal for us as people who are getting ready to queer the ballots?
So, number one is that this procedural these procedural steps are a very huge symbol of our work to justice. For as long as this colonial, hateful legislation exists in our legal textbooks, they're a symbol of a symbol of threat to our lives. For as long as this colonial, hateful legislation exists in our textbooks, they will continue to affect our everyday lives as lesbian, bisexual, transgender, intersex, queer Kenyans. So even as the long walk to freedom is tiresome, it's hectic, it is cumbersome, but it's not over until we've gotten to the end. So as we continue holding the line on this litigation front, we also continue holding the line on this civic political involvement front. So it's a step in the right direction, even as painfully and strenuously slow as it is that we are getting there. It's not won until we've gotten to the end, and we must get to the end. So even as the wheels of justice turn so painfully slow, We continue to do what we need to do with political involvement, norm shift work, queer joy, and doing what we need to do to get there. We've been ready. We keep making sure that we are ready, that even as you get to that court of appeal, we get our day in court and we tell the court why it is necessary, why it's vital, why it's fundamental that this hateful colonial legislation are stripped completely off our legal textbooks, because we have lived the realities of this legislation existing in our legal textbooks, and we continue to bear the brunt. We are kicked out of our homes. We are beaten on the streets. We are kicked out of our workplaces because of this legislation. We are denied basic human dignity that is constitutionally guaranteed to us because of the existence of this legislation. So it has to go, and we will fight until this hateful colonial legislation are stripped off our legal textbooks. And until then, we will be registering as voters. We will be involved very vehemently in changing the system, because, as I said again, we are Kenyans, queer Kenyans, trans Kenyans, intersex Kenyans, and Kenya is our business, and we will be involved until the end.
Personally say this, that I have never voted before. I have, this coming election is exciting for me because finally, for the first time, I'm feeling excited to vote, right? And again, it comes back to what you just said, like those laws have really shaped the way that I've lived my life before. And now with that breath of fresh air and be like, oh, wow, we're doing this, we're mobilizing. The fact that we are seen as few might not be the current reality, because the few can actually make a substantial change. And now I come to you, Marylize, with laws shaping our lives. How has this criminalization affected the economics of the queer community? Because you are, at the forefront of your advocacy and you are out there. How has this situation brought to this particular moment?
I think if I was to list, we would sit here and never stop listing, but also but to capture in the essence of the conversation, to capture the basics of it. I feel like a lot of people underestimate how the political scene in Kenya and everything else is intertwined, the intersectionality of it all, right? So a lot of queer people, first of all, expression is a very huge thing for queer people. Queerness comes with existing in a world that was not made for you. It comes with doing things in ways that, according to social norms, would not be deemed right? Like, even for us just sitting here, you can tell everyone showed up according to how they felt happy to show up today, right? In a world that is guided by social norms, a lot of queer people don't show up like that, because ideally it's a Friday. It's supposed to be what? A work day. When you're going to work, you're supposed to look a certain type of way. Except for queer people, that is the one thing we try to beat all the time. You're a human being. Again, going back to autonomy, you're supposed to be whoever makes yourself happy, whatever that looks like in your day-to-day life, right? And so that already is a huge interference. The outcome of that is that a lot of queer people have to either hide who they are to exist in a world of straightness, which is a very weird world, or to be themselves and miss out on employment, employment is literally the it, whatever that looks like for you. Even if it's running a business, as a person who is running a queer organization, there's a big temptation to look at it as a business, but even as a business, you're still going to be asked, who do you work with? Who are you selling to? I think one of the things that I experienced recently was I was trying to open a bank account for my organization. And I was literally told, if you work with queer people, we can't open an organization for you. And this happened after I was given documents, filled up the documents. Now I'm going back to pick all the other things that I would require, a checkbook and all that. And I was told, I'm sorry, we can't register your organization because we went and looked online to see what your organization is about. Of course, we have our website. We are not illegal. We are registered. But like, if it's queer people, apparently, and it's because of the one person who was dealing with me, the branch manager who was dealing with me. Because again, the bank is one of the banks that is recognized as a bank that has won awards for, identifying diversity and honoring diversity and respecting diversity and all that. So I'm like, the bank itself sells that policy, but the people in it don't. And so like, there's so many ways to look at it when you're looking at opportunities that queer people miss out. This was in relationship to an organization. But now think of a person. How you show up can be used to discriminate you. How you show up can be used to deny you your rights. How you show up can be used to, hinder you from accessing things that you actually deserve. Even as we're speaking about queering the ballot, it's a lot of times, even as a queer and binary person, when I'm leaving my house, I have to think so hard about how I'm going to dress up, where I'm going, who I'm going to interact with. Because if I don't think of that and I don't dress accordingly, I might not be able to access those things, which normally a human being should be able to access, right? And so because of that alone, a lot of queer people miss out on many opportunities. And then we'll be told things like self-employment is a thing, start a business, except unemployment is a big problem in Kenya. We have people with degrees and PhDs and everything doing, hard labor in terms of work. And you're telling a queer person to still compete with that person. Not that competition is an impossible thing. It's possible. But you realize every Kenyan is scrambling for that. This queer person qualifies for so many things, but they have to give up what they're experts at because in the office they work in, they're always being targeted, profiled, discriminated because of who they are. It's either that or they hide themselves. What we are fighting for, even as we are doing the whole Repeal 162 thing, or even queering the ballot and fighting for the right of queer Kenyans to vote, it's essentially to say queer Kenyans show up in different ways. We need systems that actually allow queer people to be able to show up in whatever way and still be able to exist. But then when it comes down to the wire, you still have to struggle to get a job. Your landlord will never understand, regardless of who you are. And in fact, because of who you are, chances of you even renting a place safely are very, minimal, because depending on who you are, as a person who has been denied my right to actually rent a place, even when the problem was never to pay the rent, so many times, a queer person has to consider so many things. As queer people, we have to tell each other, where is it safe to live? Where is it not safe to live? And that trickles down to where is it safe to work? Where is it not safe to work? But also the sad truth is that not all queer people can be employed in the NGO world, right? Because the NGO world does not provide enough employment for all queer people. It's not possible. It's the responsibility of the state to actually be able to provide that and be able to say, you know what, how you dress does not work. Who you are is who works. If you're an expert in this, you should be able to get a job and do your job and all that kind of stuff. But then things like biases, people have their biases, and regardless of how much our laws change, you can never change people's biases. And so the reason we fight so much for laws is because, in the very least, if a queer person is discriminated at work, but the laws protect queer people to its fullest potential, then it would mean I can actually sue someone for discriminating me. But currently, queer Kenyans cannot do that. And so queer people will be denied access, queer people will be denied employment, queer people will be discriminated in places of work, and almost always, the only thing they can do is either choose to sacrifice and betray themselves to keep that job, or leave the job so that they can honor themselves. And it's such a difficult, in between to pick from, because in what world is it okay for me to unchoose myself so that I can choose a job? I'll be coming to work very unhappy. Kenya is such an unhappy working place, to be honest, because a lot of Kenyans are very unhappy. A lot of Kenyans are busy, are working because it's a means to an end. as opposed to actually loving your job. And there's scientific research has shown so many times that if people are happy with themselves, they tend to deliver even at work and in every aspect of their life, really. But now you can imagine, again, it goes back to the discrimination fatigue. A lot of queer people, every time it's morning, you just do a big sigh and then you say, it's all that I've got. I have to go out there and do something, right? And queer people are very hardworking. As a person who works with queer people are very hard. Even the queer people who manage to actually decide, you know what, I'll express myself when I'm with my fellow queer people, but when I'm out there in the world, expression, like it's people. Queer people hold big positions in this country. Many people just don't know about it. Many conversations are not had about, most of the time. I was having a conversation with someone and I was telling them, we've had the Reject Finance Bill protest and the End Femicide protest. You'll be shocked at the amount of queer people that are in the helm of leadership for that. Because queer people are always happy to organize. In the history of human rights and fighting for them, it's queer people who champion for that. Most of the time, they have to abandon their queerness to champion for that. But really, it's too much because then queer people lose a lot. And still, your landlord, whether you're queer or not, will not care because the weirdest concept of all is that you're queer and they don't like you and they'll discriminate you and they'll make sure you don't have access to employment and economic stability. But when you're giving them money, they will never care whether that money is from a queer person. They will take every coin that you have, even the one that you've not made, because we are still in a country where immediately a child is born, they owe the country, I don't know how many thousands of shillings. So yes, they will always be happy to take your money until when it's about, regardless of your queerness, they will always be happy to take your money. And when you have money to use to defend yourself, the laws are not there to defend you. So queer people have to deal with so much, which it's very unfair considering, again, we are voters, we are taxpayers. We should actually be protected by the law because of those two main facts. Yeah.
Thank you for that. One thing that I absolutely love is that there's always this misconception when you walk around, and I think I've noticed it the more I've started coming into my queerness, is that there's an energy people see in you. They're like, wana pesa. And most of the times they'll come straight at it and be like, yeah, help me out and all that. And at first, just to piss me off, and then as slowly as I started, seeing it and paying attention to it, I started to notice even the patterns of the queer people in my, life. They're hardworking, successful human beings.
Yes.
And I think now this is a question I have to bring back to you, Adrian, as we're wrapping up this discussion, is how do we make people believe that their vote matters this coming election?
This one I'll say nikiangalia. It is very valid for you to think or feel that your voice does not matter, or that the system is already rigged, or that the way the system is designed, it was never designed to care about anybody like you, for one reason or another. The system is fucking you over, lubeless.
Ooh.
Whether you have voted for it or not, it's fucking you over.
Yes.
There's a reason you're on the streets. Because we are tired. We are exhausted. We want better. Now, voting is not the perfect tool, but it's what we have. And we must use what we have. We are resourceful people. We must use what we have. So please, tokea, chukua kura, na siku ya kupiga utoke na upige. We're in this together, and we must bring our siblings on board. Whether you think it counts or not. And I have an example for you. This LSK presidential election, we have seen serious voter apathy. Apathy meaning ile tu haujisikii. Unaona kama wewe mwenye umekaa hapo, mwenye unasema ujisikii, kupiga kura, like you there. That's apathy. There was serious voter apathy or this LSK presidential election, generally, I think less than 50% were showing up to vote.
Yeah.
And what happened? Your worst
Kanjama
nightmare
won.
has arrived.
Yes.
So it's clear that when you decide not to do anything about it, there are high chances that the person you don't want, and we all know who we don't want, will come back. And what did I start with? They will fuck you over the way they've been fucking you over, lubeless. So your voice counts for something. Stand up and be counted. Gone are the days when queer people are lurking in the shadows. We are Kenyans. Kenya ni yetu. We are deserving, whether you believe it or not, we are deserving of governance that works, of governance that listens, and that is going to transform this country, not to what it was or has been, but to a place that is going to be accommodative for all, including trans persons, including intersex persons, including lesbians, gays, bisexuals, kila mutu. And it starts by you who is listening, registering. We understand the challenges. Please allow me to. There are 3 kinds of transgender persons. There's a person that is pre-transition. You've not done any documentation change. You are probably just socially applying yourself in the gender that you identify with. The problems that you might face with the IBC will be different from a person who is within transition, where perhaps you're on hormones, you're doing your social, and you've started your legal. You don't have documents, but you've started. There's a person who has their documents, they have a different gender marker, they express the way they express. All of you listening to me here, like I said, we must bring all our siblings together in this. Please reach out. If we're going to be doing camps where we gather each other and we go and we register, we are going to do that. Masafu talked about having a voting block. The only negotiation you have is that vote of yours. You might think that the president is very far up. Your vote doesn't matter. Okay, maybe you're right. But you have your governor, Mr. Dimples. You've seen what he's been doing in our city.
Nasty.
Seriously, we have a very big billboard on Lavington
Yes.
thanking Murima Babes. I mean, that's the kind of work a person is doing. He's still busy telling us we need a BRT system. Yet he's the governor, as if he's a layman, no power. That vote of yours, if you think president is long gone, at least then think about your governor. Fine, governor Pia Kombali, think about your senator. Fine, Pia Kombali, think about your member of parliament, whose decisions directly affect you. Finance bill has already taught us.
Yes.
And finally, to that MCA, kwanza huyo sasa you have direct reach to.
Yeah.
If nothing else should send you to that ballot, please let it be that MCA. So, like I said, the 3 people, pre-transition, in transition, and people who are already well within their transition. Please, like I said, let's gather, come together. And Nigolak did something beautiful the other day where people were registering at the comfort of their office. And I also have never voted, but maybe it's because I didn't have an ID. I don't know.
That is a very beautiful attack.
And I asked several questions.
A good tackle.
And I asked several questions. One, because they checked the sex marker and I was anxious. And I asked, is this going to appear on the day of voting? Can I be stopped from voting because of my gender marker? The guy said, no. As long as your names are the same as the one on your ID and your fingerprint is the same, then yeah, you should be able to vote. No questions, no issues. Now, you who has been voting, but now you have changed your name. There's a process where people are told to update their records. Yes? Normally, it's usually the place you are voting, things like that. We are ready. Please bring us your things. If you have changed your name and you have a voter's card under your previous name, please involve us. We'll make sure that you are registered and on that day you vote. There's the one who has not done any change in terms of documentation, but they express in the gender that they identify. Please have no fear. Like I said, we're doing this together. That day, Nigolak was having mass registration. If you'd have showed up, they were not asking, Bono umevaa hivi na unakaa hivi na documents zinasema hivi. They were not asking questions. Okay? And like I said, we're doing this together. So if we're going to make sure that kama wewe uko Westlands, the way to make you vote is for us to go and vote with you there in Westlands. We will go with you to make sure on that day you're also voting. And no one is supposed to stop you. Actually, this thing is biometric. So hata kama your name and the way you look are looking different, they might ask questions, they might raise some concerns, but as long as your biometrics match, no one should stop you from voting. So please, I have squashed all your excuses. You have no reason to not register. Please, go. Tokea, register. Na siku ya kupiga tunapiga kura. Aye.
Amen. Yay.
And to add something to that, they've also updated their biometrics. Now, when you're registering, they're also capturing the iris of your eye. Regardless of how much transitioning you'll have to do, your iris will always remain the same. So, and I felt sad that a lot of people didn't take advantage of whatever galck did to bring people together, not only to have conversations about the fears queer people could have, but also to be able to register. But the IBC officer that we were talking to on that day, the conversation was very beautiful to have because it highlighted ways in which you can even sue IBC if they discriminate against you during elections. Because she was telling us that you don't have to be scared because as long as your documents match with what we've registered, if anyone tries to discriminate against you, you can actually report and it can be a case that is picked up and they can actually be held accountable for discriminating people from voting and all that. But many Kenyans do not know that. Again, it comes back to discrimination fatigue. A lot of people feel like there's no hope, there's no opportunity. But the beautiful thing, even for myself, that day, I like to claim that I know so much, but on that day I learned so much, which was such beautiful information to have, especially as a person who works in the community, because as a queer person, I also have my fair share of discrimination fatigue. So sometimes I feel very hopeless, and some things I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. And so I don't, share some information with some people. But that session allowed me to be able to understand things from a place where I'm like, we don't have to always be in a room where we are tolerated. Actually, a vast majority of our constitution protects us all regardless of our sexual orientation and all that. And then because we have the penal code that, extends the level of, harm and discrimination that we face, that's where a lot of people focus on. And it's truly in true human nature to focus on the negative even when there's so much positive and all that. But when you really think about it, pay attention, go to where, for the most part, I know a lot of queer people have to change where they vote, at least for me, because this election will be my 4th election voting. I'm not like you guys. I'm an active participant. So I'm an active citizen. I like, making decisions for my country. Yeah. So it will be my 4th time voting. But aside from it being my 4th time voting, it's one of the times that I really need to change where I vote, because not only do I no longer resonate with where I registered as a voter, as a home, but a home means much more different things to me now than they did in 2013, more than 10 years ago when I registered as a voter. And so inherently, the things that I've learned now, you are having a first-time excitement to vote. I'm having a first-time excitement to vote when I'm fully aware, when I know the information that I need to know. And because I like pushing the boundaries of the system that I live in, I'm excited to show up as queer as possible and see what will happen.
Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful discussion. Yeah. You guys have been wonderful sports people. And I'm hoping, because I know people will probably ask, will galck be also doing, another one anytime soon?
Yeah.
If so,
we hope to do a lot more. Mm-hmm. And now that I have the mic, I must add that our queer, trans, intersex elders have done their part to create for us systems where we can exist as beautifully as we do right now. Mm-hmm. And now it's our chance. We must vote, we must be counted, and we must be involved. Yeah. So by all means, step out, take out your voters registration and show up and vote. And if anything, we must remember that, again, our queer council of elders has fought very painstakingly hard in our courtrooms to make sure that the world knows, or rather not just the world, that the system changes. And the courts have been very clear. The courts have closed their doors on the likes of Kanjama, and they have said, we are not ruled by religion. We are ruled by the goddamn law. And that therefore means that we have equal, full benefit under the Constitution of Kenya. And like Marylize said, we are not here to beg for our rights. We will assert our rights because that Constitution protects all of us. And we are protected from any form of discrimination, as the Supreme Court of Kenya said very clearly. We actually basically went to court to tell the court to make the law clear, because apparently the law was not very clear. Now the law has been made even clearer that no Kenyan can be discriminated against based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. So that said, we will go out and we'll vote, because Syrian in numbers, and we shall be involved. So please go out and register as a voter. The law protects you. The law protects all queer Kenyans. The law protects all millennial LBQ persons. The law protects all Gen Z gay men. The law protects all of us in the most beautiful ways that we show up in society.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'd like to extend my warmest appreciation for you guys and the insights you've shared on querying the ballot, the first episode. And one thing that I wanted to say is I will not repeat to go register and vote. I think I've been told that so many times. And now you also know that it is important for you to vote and for you to be involved in it. Thank you so much. Asanteni, please ensure that you get home safe or wherever you're going. And for you back home, remember to follow Galk Plus, Nagelhack, and INEND on their social media pages. Asante sana. Goodbye.